Eric, welcome.
Hey, what's up, brother? How are you?
Good, thank you. I thank you for taking the time to come on here, man.
Oh, no problem at all, bro. My pleasure.
So, first, I gotta ask, do you have any plans for New Year's or what's going on over there in Vegas?
Nothing, man. We'll be up early tomorrow and be training. So the holiday season and the holidays for us are pretty non-existent in a lot of ways. We trained on Christmas and fights don't pause for the holidays. So we got to stay ready all day, every day. So I'll probably hang out with the family tonight, maybe watch a little football and get to bed early and be ready to train in the morning.
Well, I was afraid you were going to say that. I know that the Saturdays get pretty busy as well. So, yeah, training doesn't stop for those big fights in January.
Yeah, man, it is what it is. There's no off season. This is the life we chose.
You're a great and renowned coach. You made your success. I guess I got to ask, talk about that success of the gym. Where does it come from?
Honestly, man, I've been there since day one, so I've seen a lot of great coaches come and that are still at Extreme Couture. So, I was brought up under Dennis Davis, Ray Sefo, obviously the late great Robert Follis, Randy Couture, Sean Tompkins. I've seen a lot of really, really good coaches at our gym, and I was able to pick the brains of many, many great coaches, and then guys outside the gym that have really taken me under their wing, like Henry Hooft and Trevor Whitman, Brandon Gibson. Guys that I talk to quite regularly, Tyson Chartier. So I think for me, man, I try to learn a lot from my surroundings and the people that I've been with for a number of years, and make it my own, and set a standard for the gym and the team and try to keep it that way. And that was one thing I learned from Coach Follis, man, is set a standard, stick to it, and good things will happen.
Of course. You started off as a student, and I believe back in '07, and then you've pretty much made your way up the ladder there. Talk about at what point did you become the GM and everything?
I took over as the general manager. I want to say it's been 9 years now, maybe. Yeah, and I think it was 9 years this past September. So, yeah, I was literally member number one at Extreme Couture. I walked in the gym actually before they were even open, and was able to start training and learning under Mike Pyle, Jay Heron, and Randy and those guys. And then when the gym opened up, I was just a regular member, man, and going to classes every day and doing my thing. Got offered a coaching position by Randy, I think the first year I was there, and never really looked back, to be honest with you.
You know, uh, Obviously, you got the chance to be the 2020 Coach of the Year. And this year you've been selected by Mystic Black, I think his name is, for the Coach of 2021. You've had a lot of people saying that you are the Coach of the Year again this year. Where does that success come from? Is it the fighters you have? Is it your co-coaches? Who is it?
Honestly, Luke, I think it's all of it, man. We're successful as a team and as a unit. The fighters are going in there and executing the game plan and doing everything that we ask of them, and they're winning the fights. They're the ones that are going in there and putting their neck on the line. So, obviously without them winning the fights and making us coaches look good, we're not gym of the year, coach of the year. None of those accolades come to fruition if these men and women aren't going in there doing their job. And then, man, yeah, 100%. Like we as a gym are successful because we have such a great coaching staff around one another. You can interchange any one of us as coaches at the head role or assistant role or whatever else, like Eddie Baracco, Dennis Davis, Ray Sefo, Nate Pettit, Jake Shields. The list goes on and on, man. There's so many great coaches at Extreme Couture that it makes it easy, and that's why I think that we as a big gym where we are successful is because we have so many great coaches. All of our fighters feel like they're getting what they need. And I think that's what makes the gym successful, knowing that, the coaches are all hands on deck.
Excellent. And a common thing I think a lot of fighters get asked is how do you balance family life and how do you balance training, family, going to events? But someone like yourself, you travel a lot. I think a lot earlier this month you had two events. You had Bellator and then you had UFC. You're traveling back and forth. You barely get any sleep. Talk about how do you balance training, being a coach, and a family man.
It can be tough at times, and there's been times when like my 14-year-old daughter who, I used to literally bring on the mat in a carrier, so I can train, and I'd have her in between naps and lunches and things like that, so I can get the work in. Now she's 14 years old, so I mean, literally, she's been seeing this from the ground up. So there's been times with her where, I've missed dance recitals and I missed birthdays and the things like that, and those things you can never get back. But when you do have the time to reinvest into your family, you have to take that opportunity, because they're the ones that suffer the most, Luke. Like, from our absence. So when you win these accolades and you get nominated for these things, I think they're the ones that are the most proud, because they understand where your time goes.
Mm-hmm. Well, you certainly can't bring her back on the mat anymore. You can't drag her anymore. So you think that'd be harder when they're younger, but sometimes it is easier because you can just simply put them on the mat there. You can do whatever you have to do with your fighters, and then you can take them home, right? So
Yeah, exactly, man. And that's kind of the fun part of us as a gym and a team. We've all started off at the gym young men, and now now we're a little bit older. We all have kids now, and we all get to see the growth and the progression of us as families and stuff. So it's been cool.
you just kind of touched upon balancing family life and being a coach, but besides that, what would be the hardest thing as being a coach and coaching your fighters?
Honestly, like you want to make sure that you're giving 100% to everyone across the board. And you're only given a certain amount of time throughout the day, and you do get overwhelmed. You're paid for basically being a coach for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's no hitting pause, and Tyson Chartier always talks about there's a difference between coaches and trainers. And he's right about that. Like a coach is there for you every day. It doesn't matter when. There's no off season for us. Whereas trainers are hired on demand. Like when you need them, they're there for you when you need them. But other than that, it's kind of off the board. So I think for me is just making sure that everyone's getting what they need, that the balance is there for all your fighters, and no man's left behind.
In being a trainer at a gym in the heart of Las Vegas, I mean, of course, you have your regular fighters, but I mean, I can only imagine a gym like yours would have a lot of like a flow of great fighters coming in and out. Describe that experience, and what's probably been one of the best experiences that you've had?
Well, I mean, by design, us being the fight capital of the world, we're a very transient city, and you're going to get a lot of people that come into town, especially during big fight weeks, and you're going to get fighters from all across the world that come and visit. Now that the PI has been open, we get a lot of fighters that come in, maybe getting in some rehab or getting in some work at the PI, so they'll come and cross train with us. So, it's been a great experience all across the board, I think, and for us as a staff, we're very open minded, and it's nice having when new people come in and they get to show something, or they get to do something that maybe we haven't seen, or we get to step outside our comfort zone and train with different people, especially the guys from Dagestan. When they come in and get some work in with us, man, it's great, because it's competitive. That's what we are by nature. We like to compete. So getting those guys who are at the highest level of grappling and wrestling and doing things that maybe we're not accustomed to, those are the things that really stand out to me, is just like the competitiveness when you get new people in the room.
Well, and I think it brings a lot of value, and it brings a lot of new things that you can incorporate into your training plan with your fighters as well.
100%. And that's the constant evolution of this sport. Like, I feel like if you're not stepping outside your comfort zone, if you stay in this like little bubble, this tiny bubble, there's really no room to grow. So how are you stepping outside your comfort zone and getting people in with new minds, new eyes, new skill sets? And those are where the challenges come in, but it's also where your growth comes in as well. So, that's been for me, the beautiful thing about being at Xtreme Couture is like the new people that always come in to give new challenges and new looks.
100%. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about King Casey. I mean, I named her and Adrian Yanez as pretty much the male and female prospects of the UFC MMA scene of 2021. And I think even MMA Fighting named her as the rookie of 2021. Would you, without having a biased opinion, would you totally agree with that? Is there a couple girls that are up there with her?
I mean, I'm totally biased, but I get to see her on a day-to-day basis. The second or third day she was in the gym, I told her with all due respect, like, I love you. I love the way you spar. I love the way you train. I love your work ethic. She's a killer, man. And I think for me, I'm a lot like her in the regards of like, we're perfectionists and we understand that you're never going to be perfect, but it's okay to chase perfection. And there's times where like, she has a really great day and she doesn't see that, but we do as a coaching staff, and we have to remind her like, hey, not everything's going to be perfect. She sees very highly in herself and her skill set and demands a lot out of herself. So naming her rookie of the year, I think, is one thing, but I think for her, the sky's the limit just with her ideology, the way that she trains. And I think you're spot on with that, man. Like, she's got a bright future ahead of her, and I'm looking forward to see what she can do in 2022.
Well, and even before she got signed in UFC, there was a lot of buzz. There was a lot of like, she was just bringing in that it factor. And I gotta ask, I mean, looking down the next couple of years, you got to think that she's, a good pick to dethrone Valentina. She's got all the skills.
She absolutely does. And I think like the nice thing is that she's just growing each fight. Each fight you see her with Eddie Bracco and Casey Halstead and everybody like, in her surroundings at the gym. Frank Hickman's done a great job with her as well. The team as a whole, she's adding new things to her game every time out. And I think that's what's important, is that you see a new wrinkle, and now it gives somebody, your next opponent, something more to worry about, to break down, or to game plan. She's not a one trick pony. She's showing a lot of new things every time she gets in there. And I think that's what you get to see out of her growth and her maturation as a fighter.
Well, I think what she did with Valentina's sister, Antonia, it was incredible. Like, that was probably her, that was the step where that really divided her from some of the other girls in that division. And you're right. I think she brings that. She's always changing and she's always developing. And I find that's important steps as a fighter to get to the top, because as much as you can have free power, you can come in and just starch everybody, but eventually someone's going to figure you out. So when you're saying she's always developing, she's bringing a new style, that's what's going to separate her from the pack.
100% agree. And like you said, like in football or any sport, if you stick to one style, sooner or later they're going to start figuring you out, or somebody's going to lay the blueprint down and try to beat you. Like I look at like kind of like Wonder Boy when he came into the game, like he was like, oh man, this guy's going to be real tough to beat, and he is, and still is. Don't get me wrong, but sooner or later, more and more guys are going to try to find the blueprint to figure it out, and then try to and beat you, just the way Gilbert beat him. And then Blau took that same blueprint and applied it again. So yeah, you have to trying to stay on the cutting edge and find new ways to develop your skill set and your talent, because you eventually will get figured out.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Now, I do want to move on. I can only imagine you would hope that I'd be asking about Francis Ngannou here. I gotta ask. We all know he's got that scary power. We see it on TV, but if you separate it from TV and real life, watching it firsthand, how scary, and describe the energy that he brings when you see it firsthand.
It's tough to describe. Like Dewey Cooper and I laugh all the time. Like we'll like glance at each other during a session or like a pad session. Sometimes I'll see Dewey hold pads for Francis and I'll hear it, or I'll see the way it lands, and like we won't even say anything. We'll just like kind of look at each other, and vice versa. Like I'll be holding pads for him and we'll be doing certain things or certain techniques. And then there's a difference, man. Like all camp long, he'll show you like almost like it's like he has another pitch in his arsenal, like he's got another fastball, or he's got another change of speed. And that happens when we warm up during the fight. So like he'll give you this whole look all during camp, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're about to go walk and go fight. And then he really means it, and he throws it a certain way. You're like, oh my God, dude, he's gonna kill somebody. So yeah, it's ungodly, to be honest with you. Like the power that this man carries and what he's capable of doing. It's by no fault that he's been knocking people out the way he does.
At what point did you and the other coaches know he was going to be a champion? Was it before the rematch with Stipe, or was it long before? At what turning point did you see this is it? He's going to get the belt. There's no question.
I think he's always had that, and he's had a great camp and a great tutelage under Ferdinand Lopez and those guys. They brought him up, and they got him to the point where he is today. And there's, I think, just some fine tuning and some maybe some different ideology and some different people around him to realize that dream and goal. But to be quite fair, I think Francis could have been a champion anywhere. He could have gone to any gym. He makes us look good as a coaching staff. That's 100% true. But I think, being around people that can harness that and make it deliver it in the right way. I think that's what we needed to do as a staff. And that's what we've been able to do with him. But man, the guy's an athletic freak. It's tough to take credit for somebody that has already had that power and that prowess. I think just for us is just how do you harness it correctly and how do you deliver it correctly?
Well, looking back at his fight with Stipe in the rematch, once he really changed his game and we're stuffing those takedowns, I mean, do you think at that moment Stipe was defeated? Do you feel, okay, this is like this is a totally different fight?
I wouldn't say defeated because I mean, like, to me, when I look at the heavyweight GOAT, it's going to be Stipe. I think it changed the scenarios for him, right? Like, I think it was like, okay, this door has been closed. Now I need to try to find another door to open. And they're trying to problem solve on the fly. And that's a problem when it comes to a guy like Francis, when, you might have something you think you can lean on. And that was like their offensive wrestling. And, we shut that door. Then it was like, oh, okay, now we got to find something else. And it was almost kind of too little too late. But, knowing Stipe, knowing his camp and knowing the champion that Stipe is and is always going to be, they're chomping at the bit to get back in there and figure that puzzle out.
Are you kind of surprised that they didn't make a third fight? I mean, I think he had I don't want to say right, but he should have had every opportunity to get that rematch.
I'm surprised now because there hasn't been a lot of movement in the heavyweight division. Like, I know in the past that Stipe's taken a lot of time in between fights. So the fashion that Francis won the fight in March, I think Stipe should take some time off in between from getting knocked out. You shouldn't rush back into it. But yes, in my opinion, if the John Jones fight never came to fruition, I think that Stipe should have been the next in line. And in the meantime, Ciryl Gane was doing his thing and kind of coming up to the top. So, you can make an argument for all three cases. And you can throw Derek Lewis in that mix as well, right? But at the end of the day, I think if you're going to label Stipe Miocic the greatest heavyweight to ever do it, then yeah, I definitely feel like he should have had the first crack at it.
And forwarding to the fight in January, Ciryl Gane, I mean, there's no doubt that guy is the real deal. He's going to be a tough opponent. I think Francis knows that. You know that. Everyone that's going to be going to the fight knows that. But looking at this fight and not trying to exploit any, I guess, details of what your game plan is, but what are the weaknesses you see in Gane?
I mean, it's tough to come out and say weaknesses. I don't think there's a whole lot of weaknesses that the man has, but I think that what you have to look for is I guess vulnerabilities, right? Areas where you can expose him, or areas that you might be able to find a way in, if you will. And I think that's for us as the coaching staff that has been the toughest task is, okay, where can we exploit him in what areas? And we're going to have to see if those things work. And if it doesn't, we're going to have to go a different route. And if it doesn't, we're going to have to try a different route. But at the end of the day, we know that Francis has a 102-mile-an-hour fastball and he can throw it anytime he wants. But the problem with that is like, you don't always want to rely on just your power. It's like, how do you set it up correctly? And how do you find the right entrances to get to that power? And that's what we have to do as a coaching staff.
Yeah, and I think with Gane's last performance with Lewis, not to take anything from Lewis, but it really showed his case, and it kind of gets me excited because I hope that eventually, whether he gets a belt or he doesn't get the belt, not to be biased, but whether he gets the belt, he doesn't get the belt, or a fight down the way, I would love to see him fight John Jones because they both have that kind of same frame. If that makes any sense.
Who's that? Gane and Jones?
Gane and Jones. I do feel like they both kind of have the same kind of frame, the same kind of structure, and I'd love to see that matchup.
Yeah, I think you can interchange any one of these 4 or 5 heavyweights and make some great matchups right now. I would like to see Stipe and John Jones because of that same thing you're talking stylistically. I'd like to see Francis and John Jones, obviously, because we're talking about the scariest man on the planet and pound for pound the greatest MMA fighter to ever do it. So there's a lot of great matchups you can make and interchange any one of these heavyweights and get a draw from it.
And I mean, talking a little bit more about the fight with Gane, I mean, what makes Francis victorious in this fight?
I think for Francis, you're starting to see his MMA skill set grow. We saw that in the last fight with Stipe. There were some wrinkles that we were able to show because the fight went a little bit longer than a minute. So there were some other things that we were able to do and show in that fight and show some of his growth that he's been putting together for his last 5 fights in the training room. Fortunately for us, we haven't really had to show any of that stuff live in the fight. But that's I think the biggest thing for us is to lean on some of those new wrinkles that he has in his game, and show those on January 22nd.
And again, I mean, I don't want you to share the game plan by any means, but what is it? Some of the things that you've been working on with Francis, whether it be cardio, strength training, movement, what have been the biggest things?
For us, I think the shot selection, meaning like where are you placing your punches and where are those punches going to move your fighter to or your opponent to, how to set your traps correctly. So Coach Jimmy Gifford always talks to us about like, barroom fighters, people in the bar, they throw punches and they don't know where those punches are going. They just throw them aimlessly. Whereas us, we need to be snipers. We need to place our punches. We need to understand where we put the punches and the reasons why we put them there. So that's been a lot of, I think for us is our growth with Francis is he's starting to understand placement of punches and what it does and where does it move the fighter and what traps does it set from there on out. So don't go in there and just wildly aimlessly throw punches and close your eyes and hope for the best, but understand like, the placement of your punches will deliver the right mechanisms where you need them and give them the right routes and correct ways to deliver them.
And that being said, this is what I heard. It was his last fight on the contract, if that's true. Does he re-sign with the UFC?
I think he does. I do, and I think both sides want to make this happen. And I think there's some. Moreover, I think it's some terms and some verbiage in the contract. I don't think it has to do with anything with the money. I think it has to do with like length and some other things. But completely out of my wheelhouse. But I'm a competitor, and I know that the best competition and the best talent is going to be in the UFC. So I'm hoping that Francis decides to stay. They come to terms, and we have a long career in the UFC.
And you brought up a really good point at the beginning here. You talked about there's a difference between being a trainer and a coach. It would appear from like just your social media that Francis is really involved with you, the family, seems to be really close with you. How is your relationship with him or your rapport with him different than some of your other fighters?
Not by much, to be honest with you. Like I'm very, very tight with Danny Ige. I'm very tight with Kai Kamaka, Puna, Brad Tavares, Jeremy Kennedy. I mean, all of my fighters that I work with, I feel like we have this tight knit continuity where we can pick up the phone and talk to one another. And it goes 2 ways, man. Like as a coach, I call Dan Ige quite a bit and I get feedback from him, areas that I can improve on and things of that sort. So yes, I think Francis probably because he's at the house more than most because of he's a single guy. He lives at home by himself. So it's okay. Like he'll pick up the phone and be like, "Hey, I'm coming over." There's times he just shows up at the house and he's hanging out. So, but him, my family, obviously my kids, my wife, he's become part of our family. Certainly during the pandemic time when it was just me and him. We were just training together in the gym by ourselves. We didn't have much else. So it just felt right to invite him over for dinner and have him part of the family. And that tradition has carried on over the years.
Excellent. And just lastly, I mean, talking about Sterling and Jan too, the fight's going to happen. How do you feel the fight's going to be different?
I think this is going to be a great fight. And, I've got to train with Piotr Jan in the past. He's a guy that like, when I first met him, I knew right away this man was different. And it's funny because like, I don't speak any Russian. He doesn't speak very, very good English at all. But man, we started hitting pads and we hit it off right away. And I was like, man, this guy's different. And then for me with Aljo, Aljo and I've been competing against each other in the past. Like I cornered Brian Caraway against him in the past. We've been on the opposite side of corners together. And so when he came out to Vegas, we struck up this friendship and we were able to start training together within the pandemic. And we really hit it off, man. And I'll tell you what, this guy is a great person. He's a great character guy. He's in our gym damn near every day when he's in Vegas. And he's the first guy to pick up the mop bucket and clean the mats. He's the first guy to help other guys in the room, to pick up a class, to help coach. So outside of the fighting perspective, I'm talking about the people themselves. They're both guys you can really cheer for, man. They're good individuals, Aljo obviously had the surgery done on his neck. And we dealt a lot with that in the last camp. He was in, he was out. Every day was day by day with him. So I'm looking forward to seeing a healthy Aljamain Sterling get in there and compete against Petr Yan, who, these two men, I think, are going to be the cream of the crop when it comes to the bantamweight division for many years.
Well, to be a champion, you have to act like a champion.
Yeah, 100%.
And do you feel, I think there was a lot of, I would say casual fans out there. Do you feel like there's a lot of extra pressure on Aljo to put on that performance to, hey, okay, I'm gonna doubt all those casual fans that I am the champion. I didn't just get gifted a belt.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that inherently that's going to happen because of the fashion and the way that he won the belt. But I think anyone that really watched the fight, he wasn't getting blown out of the water. He was hanging around, but Yan was taking over. And we're all very aware of that. Yan was taking over in that fourth round. And obviously there was another 5 minutes left and anything could have happened. And Yan was on his way to winning a decision. But it wasn't like it was a 50-45 coming down the line either. So I think for us, we were able to go back to the drawing board and me and Aljo literally went down and broke down round by round, minute by minute, and looked at everything that we saw, what we can do better, and how do we apply that in the next fight. So he's going to be out here with me for the next 3 weeks, and then he's going to head back home to Long Island and finish up camp with Sarah Longo and the boys over there. So I'm hoping to give these guys a good foundation to start, and then, head back home and he can finish up camp and I'll watch everything via video from home.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Eric, for taking your time. We're running out of time here, so I appreciate you taking your time out of your day to come on here, and good luck with all your upcoming fights there, Coach.
My pleasure, Luke. Thanks for reaching out, man.